Buenos días, bienvenidos. Ayer ya tanto en el fanpitch como en el Coming Soon anticipé esta sesión con Ogiony. Él representa CAA, unas agencias de representación más importantes de la historia del cine, diría. Además de Estados Unidos, cuando nos reunimos con él en Los Ángeles nos explicaba que se presentan también como la puerta de acceso al mercado norteamericano. Por lo tanto, todos aquellos que tengáis proyectos, ideas y necesitéis de una interlocución para acceder precisamente a su mercado, es vuestra oportunidad, porque al final de su explicación dará la opción de que preguntéis. So, welcome, everyone. I want to introduce Ogiony. He's a representative of the CAA. He's the door to the United States production. So, take advantage of his knowledge, and at the end of his speech, he's going to give you the opportunity to ask everything you need. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you so much. As you said, I'm Ogiony. I'm from Los Angeles. I work at Creative Artists Agency. And you might be saying, like, let me just start off, like, what do I do, right? So I am an agent, right? And I work within the system of an agency where we represent huge clients, right? From directors to chefs to authors to sports players, right? But I work specifically in the CAA Media Finance Group. And so what my job is to basically help films find money and distribution, right? And that is really important in terms of where our ecosystem is in Hollywood, in that we are making films for creatives to have ownership, right? And also agency in how they produce and distribute their films. And so think of me not like a talent rep, but really more of a rep for a producer or somebody who's trying to get their film made. And right now you see in Hollywood, it's like everywhere, it's very challenged, right? You had, for a long time, this crazy period of what we called the streamer wars, right? Where we had Netflix, Apple, Hulu, all these new distributors sort of bringing their money and sort of destroying and sort of changing the industry, right? And so what my job is to help filmmakers understand that there are different options than just going straight to Paramount, Sony, Universal, right? We are there to have a real thrust in terms of filmmakers and letting them sort of choose on how they make their films. Well, we can talk about a couple films, right, that we've done. One film that I did that I think probably people know is Long Legs, right? Long Legs was a huge hit in the United States. I think hopefully maybe you guys have seen it, maybe not. But like, well, we can talk about that. We can talk about a couple other films. But I think really what we want to talk about is how these films get made, right? And so what I do is what we call two things: packaging and distribution and sales. And my job can come at any point in a movie's life, right? It could be a script, it could be a finished film. And at any point, my job as an agent is to come in and see how I can provide value for that film, right? If it's just a script, then we figure out, hey, who's a producer, who's a director, who is a piece of talent that we can put in, and we call packaging that, right? Once we have this package, we then go and we try and find money, right? And that can be a really kind of crazy process, right? You are looking for ways to sort of mitigate risk and find out ways to finance movies without asking for Hollywood studios to do that, right? And so I'm sure most of you are, I think, filmmakers out here, producers, want, you know, stuff like that, and that's really interesting in that, like, you must like sort of figure out how do you make a movie from a first-time filmmaker, right? Like, or a second-time filmmaker. And so my job is to really figure out how you can bring films into being, into life. So I think what we'll start with is a little bit of like, you know, how does films get financed outside of the Hollywood system, right? We really like go through like a different model in the US. Like most people I think in the United States think that it's all just sort of like a, you know, you go to Paramount, you go to these big studios and these things happen. But we really try and focus on finding different ways of financing. And I'm really happy to be here because I feel like the Spanish film industry is really working, right? And right now, there's a huge problem in the United States in terms of distribution. And so we're really looking towards, you know, new ways of financing, new ways to figure out how to get films made. And so I think with Longlegs, let's just talk with that one. So Osgood Perkins, great filmmaker, been doing films forever. You know, he had this script. He didn't know what to do with it. He knew he had a vision for it, right? And thankfully, he was able to find Nicolas Cage in this role, right? It was still a very risky proposition. You know, at the time, those type of movies, especially that type of horror film, wasn't quite working. You know, you had Hereditary still in the market, but it was still a very tough market for something like Longlegs. And we were able to go find, obviously, Nicolas Cage. And then from there, once we had Nicolas Cage, we found what we call a foreign sales agent, right? And these are partners we use that take this package that we put together, and they're able to sort of understand what the value is in Spain, the value is in Germany, what the value is across the world. And we use that to like go to markets then with this package, and we try and sell off little territories, right? And that can trigger financing. From there then we went out to equity players, and that's sort of my job, is once you have a package together, then you go out and find the money, right? And so we then call 20, 30 people that we know that maybe have that money, and we were lucky enough to find a partner there in C2. And they fully financed the movie, right? Which is generally a very, very tough proposition, right? To have somebody just write a check for a lot of money. And that was fantastic. So then we got this movie, Osgood starts shooting it, right? And we were like, once we have the movie sort of in progress, you know, the next thing I think about is distribution, right? If you have this sort of movie without any sort of backing, without any distribution, it's my job then to go find distributors and figure out how to sell it. And that can be like, it's not easy, right? It's like, because you have to actually convince people to care. You have to convince somebody, you know, in the distribution market to say yes. Because most people I find in distribution, they don't want to say yes, right? Saying yes means doing work. Saying yes means putting your career on the line to say, I like this movie, I want to do this movie. And if that doesn't work out, you can be in a really, really tough place. And so we kind of figured out, like, how do we strategize selling Longlegs? Like, what do we wait? And that's another thing about, you know, what we do too. Once we have this package, once we make a movie like Longlegs, then it's a question of how do you sell it, right? What is the best way for sales? Like, what makes sense in terms of how you show a movie? And my theory is, you know, when you sell a movie, it's when, where, and how you screen the movie that is the strategy, right? If you just give somebody a DVD, that's a strategy. If you go to Sitges and you show it as a premiere and have buyers come, that's a strategy. So we were sitting there, you know, trying to figure out what is the best way of this strategy. And there are pitfalls, right? If you wait to sell a movie when it gets to the end, when it's the full film, it's a risk-reward scenario. It could be really good, or the movie could actually turn out to be okay. And once you show the movie, that's it, right? You get like one shot. So with Longlegs in particular, it was actually interesting because we were like, we don't want to wait to the end, because I think we just felt like in the market right now, it's really tough, you know, at least especially in the United States. So we put together a very small promo, which is basically just Nick Cage, you know, in makeup, being like, oh, right? That was basically the promo. It was like literally 30 seconds, right? But it worked, and Neon bit, and they loved it, and they bought the movie, and they bought the movie for a good price with a big theatrical. And it wasn't until they actually then saw the movie that they were like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So I think the point of what I'm trying to say is that, you know, with movies that we take, we really look at every single step in a movie's life and how we can actually figure out how to push it forward to make sure that we're bringing value to the filmmakers and that we're really treating them and the film with the utmost respect for both the creative and the financiers. And I think that's an important point, is that as an agent, I work with the creative and I work with the financiers. And that's really sort of my job, is to figure out how to find somebody's creative voice, the money and the distribution that they need to figure this out. And so it's different in that, you know, I don't wake up in the middle of the morning worried about getting Brad Pitt a job, right? That's not my worries. My worries are, how do I figure out how to get Nick Cage or this actor in the movie so that I can figure out how to find money, how I can find distribution. And so, like, it's the one thing I love about these festivals, and it's becoming more and more about how important film festivals and also outside of the United States is right now. You know, in the US, it's troubled, right? We just went through this whole thing called the streamer wars, which I'm sure you're feeling here, where Netflix and Apple and Hulu came in with all this money. They spent all this money on a ton of films, right? And now they've pulled it back, right? They said, we don't need this anymore. We've found our audience, right? And so in doing so, though, they sort of destroyed the theatrical nature of going to the theaters, right? My mom and dad, they don't go to the theaters anymore. They figured out Netflix. They figured out how to press the Netflix button, right? And so we're now in this really interesting, challenged area, which I think provides a lot of opportunity. And it provides a lot of, I think, challenges as well. And that's why I think here, like being at Sitges is so interesting, because we need filmmakers. We need Spanish filmmakers. We need European filmmakers. We're looking to find new ways to make content, and we need co-productions, right? Like here is such a vibrant country with such a great system, right? In terms of tax rebates, soft money, and we really are pushing that. Like we worked on with one movie here, I think it's here, El Hoyo 2, right? The platform. Galder's movie, we work with him a lot. And like that's the type of filmmaker we want to do more with, right? We want to find really great European filmmakers and figure out a way that we can make their ideas and make their creatives use the system right here in Spain or somewhere else to make films that then can sell into a worldwide audience. And I think that's the challenge right now, is how do we make films that are for a worldwide audience? You know, it's a really challenging thing, and I think most of you probably are just like, how do I get my first film made, right? And we could talk about that for a second. I think if you're a filmmaker, you're like, what do I do? Like, how do I get my first film off the ground? Great question, and I don't know all the time, right? What I do know is that film festivals play such an integral part in how you get your movie off the ground by creating what I think is like momentum, right? Whether that's a short film or whether that's a feature film. I found that like momentum is like the one thing that you can't really quantify, but you really can sort of like really think about in terms of like, okay, I've got this film, I've got a script, how do I get talent? You know, one way that I've found in terms of, at least in the American industry, you know, going to a festival with a short film gets you momentum, right? You meet different people, you meet different things, you figure out how to find your talent, you figure out how to find your producer. This sort of industry and this sort of like atmosphere that we have here, I think is the most important thing ever. And so, really like focusing on, you know, meeting people here, making sure that like you are talking to the right type of people, and then once you get that short film in here or that script in here, it really is about sort of then putting the pieces together of your package, right? A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I guess the question is, how do you get your film financed, right? Financing a film can be a really daunting, difficult idea, right? Like, it's very rare for somebody to just come and just write a check, right, and just give you millions of dollars. So you really have to sort of focus on, you know, thinking about a film as almost like it's almost like you're buying a house or something like that, right? Like you want to figure out ways that you can sort of cut apart different pieces, and maybe there's a tax credit here in Spain, right? Maybe there is a foreign sales partner, right, who can help sell different territories, right? Maybe there is different ways to pre-sell the movie to US distributors. And I think like it's really challenging, but here, at least in Spain, I found that there's like really great avenues for filmmakers like yourselves to get out there and like push it. But I really want to be more interactive here because I don't want to just sit here and just talk about Nick on Nick for the whole time. And so I actually am more interested, if it's okay, to like sort of open it up a little bit and sort of ask you, questions, because I have no idea if I'm speaking to filmmakers or if I'm speaking to just to journalists or just near the wells. But I would love to sort of start to talk if a little bit, if it's okay, to like see if anyone has questions and like wants to talk about it. Yes, please, please.
Hello, thank you for being here. My question would be, we are students right now from SCAC, the filmmaking school, and how does a new filmmaker come to you? Come to an agency? How can we present a project? Meaning, maybe it's our first project, we don't have only shorts behind us to give like some sort of, what we have done. So how can we do that approach? Because I know that some agencies don't permit like a direct approach. Someone has to get you there. So how does it work with CAA, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. And like the most simple question from a filmmaker, like that is like the basic, like how do I get in here? So yes, look, I think in terms of it's hard to approach somebody from CAA. It's more just because about volume, right? Like if we would get thousands of people right doing that. I think there's a couple things. One is, again, film festivals. Like that is a huge, because film festivals are a way to sort of vet the process. And what I mean by that is film festivals are sort of pre-validation, right? They are already here. That if you're in Sitges, your movie is awesome, right? Like your movie's great. And so I usually find that there are film, Toronto, Sitges, even San Sebastian, Sundance, Cannes. These are festivals that really do a great job of finding great filmmakers from high and low. And so that's one way, right? And that's obvious, right? I think also, though, a lot of agents, and maybe it doesn't seem like that way, really find and search for new talent. And so even if it's a short film, like chances are somebody's going to watch it, And so, yeah, I think the hardest thing, though, is just reaching out directly and saying, hey, I've got this movie. Like, that is tough, right? Because I do think most agents, right, at least in Hollywood or whatever you want to call it, act on this idea, again, of momentum, right? And what does that momentum mean? It means people are talking about it. It means that it's being shown or there's an article about it. So it is hard to have you as a new filmmaker, as a student filmmaker, with just a script, right? That's probably the hardest thing in the world, right? And so I guess I encourage student filmmakers and young filmmakers, right, to make something, even if it's 5 minutes, right? Show something, because I think the hardest thing is for me to be given a script with no context and to be said like, hey, this is great. How do I make this movie? Because at that point, as I kind of went through before, the packaging stages, there's so many steps to find the producer, to find the talent, to find the money, to find the distribution, that I almost want you to kind of like push it forward a little bit, right? So as a filmmaker, it'd be great if you have a producer already, right? You have a budget. You maybe have written the full script and you've got a 5-minute short film that is the movie, right? But it's a test. It's calling card, right? And so I know that sounds tough, but I think you kind of have to push it a little bit further so that you're showing somebody visually what you want to do, whether that's a short of film or just a piece of like, you know, a reel of what you can do. But it really is sort of creating momentum, because I think the hardest thing is to find somebody and just give them a script, because you're asking then me to do all this work, you know, which I want to do, but I need to know that there's like an end goal, and that I can then put it this way. If you give me a script and you say, I want this actor, just because I work at CAA doesn't mean that I represent Nicolas Cage or the act. I have to go to another agent who is just in talent, who just reps those people, and I have to convince them that this is good, right? So half of my job is a battle, right, internally in my own company to convince my colleagues, this director should do this, this piece of talent should do this, right? And so I need something, I need momentum, I need something to show, to sell it to my own colleagues, right? So I hope that answers your question, because it's interesting in that, like, I don't have I think people have the wrong impression of, like, because I work at CAA, I then can, like, you know, call actors and directors on the phone. I can do that, but I have to go through certain channels. So I just encourage you to have as much as you can in the package to push it forward, right? If you're from Spain, right, figuring out, you know, a producing partner here who can have access to tax credits, right? Having a piece of financing already, something that, like, we can then work on a little bit. Sorry, that was a long-winded way of saying that. Yes, please.
I have a question about genre filmmaking in particular and the health of that ecosystem. Would you say that it's easier to get a horror film off the ground right now than other genres?
So the question was, genre filmmaking, is it easier to get a horror film off the ground than other films? Yes. I mean, yes and no, right? I think the beauty about horror films and genre films is that they're not as cast dependent, right? They are director driven. I think when we typically finance a film, right? Let's just say we have let's just take an idea here, right? Let's just say we have an action film, right? Lots of guns, lots of explosions, right? Who do you want in an action film? You want Jason Statham, right? Great. So we have a Jason Statham movie, right, for $20 million. You have to find, with certain films that are outside of horror, they have to have some sort of value in international markets, right? So that Jason Statham action film can go and sell in Germany, in Spain, for a certain amount of money to then meet the value of the budget level. With horror films and genre films, it's different, because I think people are more willing to take a chance on a director's vision, right? I think it's less about adding up the values, right? And it's more about, hey, this is something that, like, I feel is interesting. Like, this is a vision that I want to do. I mean, even with Long Legs, which is a good example, like, Nick Cage was obviously a huge piece in getting the movie made, but it was really all about the director, Osgood Perkins, right, who has been making films for a long time. And so I think, especially in America too, horror films still sell, right? And so having like that is an important part, because right now in the US, it's really hard to get movies distributed, right? There's not enough theatrical players, there's not enough, like, push and urgency for that, and horror films are definitely one of the more, I think, malleable films in terms of genre that can actually still play theatrically, they can play on streamers, and you don't necessarily need to have a big cast to do it. Because I think that's a big issue, right? Like, most people have a movie and it's great, but they need this actor to get this budget level, right? So half the time they're figuring out how to get a piece of talent to make their movie go. And I think with horror films, it definitely helps sort of just sell the value of the director as opposed to sell the value of the package, if that makes sense, you know? Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Nick. My name is Leah. I'm out of LA too, so hello from California.
Hi.
I just have a question in terms of, from your experience in packaging, how has the big boom from Parasite, for instance, brought more international films and subtitles and so many people watching things at home. Have you found that it's easier to package and sell foreign language films in the US, or is it still an uphill battle for you?
Great question. So I think I think the American audiences are becoming attuned to it, right? I think when you see like Pachinko or Shogun, right? Like even in TV, it's becoming much more, I think, interesting, especially in the TV section. I think there's still a tough go at it in theatrical, right? If you are Parasite and you are Neon, right, there are certain distributors that are really good in America of pushing that forward. But I still do think that it is a really tough proposition if you want to go big, right? I think Parasite was a great example, but I do think it's still an exception to the industry, you know? But again, I think, and that's why I think it's important, like if you can make a film in, you know, let's just say here in Spain, in Spanish, like as long as you just look at the United States as upside, right, and you're looking at it as a potential breakout, it could be that. But I do think if you think of like foreign language films, it's either genre or they're like big period pieces, right? Like, and so I do think it's still limited in terms of how, like you don't see like French comedies in the US market, right? There are certain things that just don't work. I think genre works. Obviously with Parasite, you had a Titan filmmaker who had been known and is obviously well regarded. So I do think that it's still a barrier, right? You need to still have something that is like completely just obviously sellable, like with Parasite or something like that. You know, even like, I mean, another one was like Anatomy of a Fall, I thought was incredible, right? Incredible film. Still is difficult to push in the US market. It did really well, but you know, that still takes sort of this like idea of this is gonna be an award winner, right? It's like there's no like, there's like usually there's high and low. There's no like low, you know, just sort of like trashy genre, you know, that works in the United States. It's all mostly critically driven stuff, you know? Like we did Amelia Perez, right, which is fantastic, and that was actually a really unique thing where our group, CAA, founded this company called Library, which is an American company specifically financing foreign language films. And look, there was only one person, Jacques Audiard, who could do a trans mafia, basically musical, right? And then still sell it to Netflix. I mean, it seems fucking crazy, but it worked and it was genius. So I think I think to answer your question, if it's a foreign language film that is like breaking the mold and it's just unique and different, like Parasite or Amelia Perez, there's absolutely, you know, a market for it. But I think outside of that, it's still pretty difficult, right? I mean, most English language films are not getting distribution right now because the system is really broken in the US. So unless it's some really tight and heavy hitter, it still remains, I think, a little difficult. Yeah? Yes?
Hi, Nick. So what I'm understanding is that if you have a film, something like Anatomy of a Fall, but you're a first-time filmmaker,
yes,
it's going to be very difficult to tell if you're going to be that groundbreaking and to have that critical acclaim. So even if you have, and let's put this case, you have a short film that has been to AFI, BFI, some big festivals, and you have a good script. How is the process? Do you have like a general mail to send all these things? What can you add to package the proposal so that you give it more importance, so that you really value
yeah.
the project?
I think you really need a good producer. You need a good producer, right? A producer is, I think, if you are a filmmaker and you are a director, writer, you know, it shouldn't be your job to worry about how to get my film off the ground. You need a producer that is savvy and that knows how to put the different pieces together. Again, like I'm sort of like a match, right? I need the flint though. I can light the fire, but I need something to do that. And so for you if you are a first-time filmmaker, finding a good producer who can understand the worldwide market is really important, right? I have this film, okay? Do I have access to money, tax credits, rebates here in Spain? What does that look like, right? Having a producer put together a finance plan, a budget, right? A schedule, right? I think that the best thing you can do as a first-time filmmaker is attention to detail, right? Not just like read my script, well, you just write a check, right? But no, I have this script. I'm going to shoot for 30 days. I'm going to do it in Barcelona. I'm going to get a 30% tax rebate, right? I then think I can get these actors, right? They're not even that big, and I think I can get another 20% in a couple territories and foreign sales. I'm looking for $1 million, to finance a $4 million film, right? And so if you get really granular and specific, then I take it more seriously because you've done your homework, right? You've taken it all the way you can. And I think that's the most important thing, right? As filmmakers, and you need to find a producer who help you get it all the way, right? And then I can come in for that last piece, right? And that's kind of what I mean by momentum. Like, if you just bring me a script, right, it's really hard to put the blocks to blocks. But if you already sort of built the house and you just need the roof, right, that's where I can come in. And so I encourage everybody to really find, and again, that comes down to a good producer, right? Just a really good producer who understands that and who can take it all the way. And then if you come to me and said, I have all these pieces, I just need this little piece, it makes me, trust you, right? Trust that, because again, it's about the creative vision, but it's also about execution. And that's the hardest thing, is finding people that not only have a great vision, because I'm sure everybody here has good ideas, but how do you execute? How do you execute at the right budget, and how do you get it done in the right time? So again, I just encourage probably to have good producers to find you, a path, at least start walking the path, and then I can come in. It's just really hard for us to come in the beginning with no momentum, right? If you're already sort of pushing it forward, that's where I think I can be the most helpful.
And in that case, how my producer contacts you? Is it like direct contact? You're going to give us a form of contact?
Yes, I mean, sure. Don't abuse it, but yes, but yes, we can, happy to look at anything. And again, I encourage you to also think about what it is that you're selling to me, right? I am not going to help your drama, Spanish drama, about how you hate your mother. Like, that's not interesting to me, right? Like, it needs to be an idea that can break into the U.S. too, because my focus is making films that I can flip to the United States, that can work in the U.S., but also on a worldwide basis. But again, I still am an American, and I'm looking to the U.S. market. So I need ideas that make sense for the U.S. market. So, no dramas.
Thanks much.
Hi, Nick.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Sapna. I'm actually a filmmaker from India, but now I have an O1, so I live in LA.
Nice.
Yeah, hi. So I did have a co-producer from LA, from Australia, and he actually introduced me to an agent at CAA. And I had a meeting, and the project that I have actually has gone to 2 very big markets, which is BFUN, it's a NAV project, and also a BIF, which is Brussels. So I met with this person, and it was really interesting, and she was like, oh, your project's really great, but the thing is, for me to help you, I need to represent you.
Okay.
Okay, and I was like, wait, I'm a little confused, and I'm just saying this because this might help somebody, like, you've gotten to the table. You have a project, you have a producer, your project has been to 2 big genre markets, and now it comes to this, and I was like, oh, I kind of didn't know what to do there, because I was like, so how do you represent me, right? So how does that happen? Like, how could I have crossed that bridge there? Is there a way? Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, let's just be practical here, right? You can fire them at any time, right? So you could say, sure, represent me, and then if they don't do anything by tomorrow, goodbye, right? So I think you need to, it doesn't sound like you quite understand what this agent wants to do to like represent you, right? Like,
I didn't understand, like, you know, I mean, it was almost like she was kind of sussing me to see if I'm also good enough to be represented by the agency. And I actually didn't know much, like I don't know how these things work. And I was like, listen, I don't know how to start the process, and maybe if you tell me how to do it. But then after that, I couldn't get a hold of her anymore. So that was the end of that.
All right, so it just sounded like bullshit to begin with, okay?
Yeah.
It sounds like bullshit.
Yeah, but I had a proper meeting at Soho House in West Hollywood.
Oh,
like, I went
not a bad
there,
place.
And I was like, ooh, this
like, Soho House, yeah. You're on the 10th floor, you're seeing the skyline of LA.
No, she didn't take
You're like,
me
I'm
there.
here in Hollywood.
I didn't get there.
It's like very The Substance. It's like very crazy.
Right, I was like, wow, I've like managed to actually get a meeting with somebody who works at CAA. Like, how does that happen to a filmmaker from India who has just got her O1 visa and just landed in LA? So it was great till that moment, and then it's a great movie though. And after that, it was just like, all right, I can't.
Well, first off, like, congrats. Like, that's not easy, and I think it just shows that you're hustling, right? And that's a fantastic thing. Look, again, in my agency, there's two different types of agents, right? There are agents that represent filmmakers that are looking to put them in Hollywood movies, right? That's different. They represent your career. My job is not that. My job is to represent a film, right? I don't represent people, I represent the film. And I'm basically almost like a producer's agent where I help that film. So I think when you're taking these type of meetings, you have to get granular too, right? Are you helping me find money or distribution? Or are you helping me find jobs within the industry?
Got it.
You know what I mean? And so if you have a film, I think probably the agent that you're talking to probably is somebody who's looking to represent filmmakers to then get them jobs in Hollywood, right? But your objective is to find money.
Money, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's different, right? And I think, and that's very specific. And most agents don't do that. So I think when you're having these meetings, you just need to ask, like, are you here to represent me as a filmmaker, or are you here to represent my film to figure out how to get distribution and money? And because they're two different, and people get confused, right? People think, oh, because I work at CAA, I must represent this director or this actor. Like, I don't, and I have to talk to my colleagues for that.
Right, okay, yeah, thanks a lot.
You're welcome, and good luck, good luck. The food is terrible at Soho House, by the way, terrible food. Oh, you didn't eat anything? Good, good. In the back, yes.
Hello, thank you for sharing all this knowledge. It's very interesting to find out. I have a sort of a two-in-one, but short.
Okay.
One would be, I'm talking about animation movie. If like Finnish animation movie, just premiered at Sitges, is it, you know, like, is it interesting? Is it too late to, you know, to show it to CAA, or is, you know, is it still possible? And second one is, again, for animation, let's say that in a couple of months, if I have 1 million into my next project, is it interesting to show to CAA at that point?
Yes, yes, you're a great example of who I'm trying to find, right? This guy has a finished film, right? Great, because what I love more than anything is to take a finished film and then go sell it, right? That is a great example and where I can bring real value, right? You have a film, you've got a film made, right? Now you're looking for distribution. That's easy. Like, not easy, I shouldn't say that, but that is something that I'm really good at. So yes, for your animated film, sure. Now I would say that the US market for animation is really tough, right? Because you have Pixar, right? And then you've got everything else. So, and you know, it's really tough, the barrier of entry for animation, because it has to be widely theatrical, right? But one, congratulations. Like, that's really tough to make an animated film. It costs a lot of money, it's a lot of time, and that's fantastic. Yes, I would love to see it, for sure. Knowing that it's still really tough in the US market. Secondly, yes, if you have $1 million in your financing and you're looking for more, again, that is what I'm talking about, right? You are creating momentum. You are creating a path, right? You are saying, I've got this budget, I've got this money, I need help to finish it. That's where I can be the most value to you, right? Because you already are taking on producerial roles and you already are being entrepreneurial, right? And you are already figuring out ways to get your movie made, and you're just stuck at like one little level. And you're not asking me to take the weight of the world on my shoulders, right? You're asking me just for a little bit of help here. So congratulations on the film, and like absolutely, and that's exactly what you should be doing. Just keep hustling, keep pushing forward. I'd love to see in that situation a finance plan, right? Do you have a foreign sales agent that has a estimates for foreign and what that, do you have a cast yet? Do you have, like, whatever you have, like, that's interesting, and the attention's in the details. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. We have 5 minutes, so a couple more questions. Yes, sir.
Hey, 2 quick questions. First one is, do you get film projects that are meant to be pitched or sold to streaming services? And if so, how does that affect the development of the project?
Yes. Okay, great question. So I don't think, when I am given a pitch or an idea, anyone can buy it, right? That's in my mind. Like, fuck Netflix. Like, we can go to Paramount, we can go to Neon, we can go to A24. So I think, don't limit yourself as a filmmaker thinking I'm going to make a movie for Netflix, right? I think that's limiting. I think when you pitch me a movie, right, I think about all the different buyers it could be, right? Like, I'm thinking about, A24, Neon, Magnolia, IFC, Paramount, Netflix, Hulu, right? I'm thinking about 20 different companies. So I don't think about just making a streamer sale. I think that people are obsessed with the sort of streamer sale because that seems like the easiest path to getting a movie made right now, which is true. But my job is to more figure out how to make the movie so that I can then go and get the streamers to buy it. But I don't think like this is a streamer movie. I think about much more about how do you sell this into the streamers rather than like how do I make it for the streamers, if that makes sense, right? For me, it's about empowering you so that you have everyone at the table, right? And I think it's most interesting when you make a movie and it's going really well, and Netflix makes an offer and Neon makes an offer, and then you're sitting down there getting pitched by Netflix and Neon on the different ways they can distribute your movie, right? Because again, I've seen it time and time before. Netflix is fantastic. I've done a lot of business with them, but again, it's different than a theatrical release in the United States. A theatrical release could either burn out or it can be huge, and with Netflix, it can be, a very different proposition in terms of how it's distributed. So I think I'm answering your question here, is that I don't think about that. I think about how do we make a movie and what are the different options from high to low, because I don't want to limit you, because there are different ways movies can be distributed in the US and worldwide, and think big, think for yourself, but also keep the power, you know what I mean? And don't worry about making a movie for a specific thing. Make the movie for yourself. That makes sense.
The second question
Yes.
is, if I'm a filmmaker and I want to pitch to you a project, it's horror, it's genre, and obviously I've never done a movie before, but I've done shorts, and I have like a good pitch, I've got like a good concept. How important is the scope of the project? Like, is something that's going to be costing maybe like 30 to 50 million like stop you, or is it going to be more interesting if it's like 10 under?
So it's very rare for a first-time filmmaker to go find a $30, $50 million. That's probably impossible, right? Mostly because, that's a lot of money, right, to entrust to that. So I think as a first-time filmmaker, find, again, pitches are fine, but I really would prefer you to have something visual. Make a short film that is the movie, right? Make a short film that's 5 minutes and then say, oh, you like this? Here's my feature-length feature, right? Then again, find a good producer. Find a producer that understands the market and can say to you, look, dude, this 30 to 50, this is not feasible. Let's find something that is, you know, under $10 million, let's say. Let's find a little bit of money in Spain, right? Let's find, you know, a great concept, and let's sell it that way. But I guess I encourage you to think about when you have that type of budget that's so huge, you have no ownership anymore, right? And as a young filmmaker, find the right budget where you have ownership in what you do, right? And that, like, you're not asking somebody to write a huge check. You can find little pieces here and there so that you're making the movie you want to make, but you're making it at a reasonable, responsible budget. And I think a really tough thing for filmmakers is understanding what the value is in worldwide, and understanding how to make a movie at a budget that makes sense. So don't, like, the $30 to $50 million world that's the Hollywood world. That's Pedro Almodovar or what. He doesn't even make it. He makes them actually less than that. Actually, completely less. So think. Be reasonable. Be responsible, right? And have people give you good advice in terms of what the actual potential for your movie is. And again, as a first-time filmmaker, pitches are great, but I always find making a short film that's based on your movie always helps and travels and sells well. I think that's it for now. Sorry, I feel really great. I feel like I've been rambling, but I really appreciate all your time. I hope some of this made sense, you know, and thank you.